email that we received from Gerard. Gerard says, when responding to the fact that there were some corrupt individuals leading the church, I often hear Catholics say that, quote, well, it's not the church that's imperfect, but the people in her. Well, if church and God are real, then wouldn't God give grace to priests and popes to be perfect as well? I guess what I'm ultimately asking is, why do Catholics often fail to live up to their ideals of perfection?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the question. Let me come at this from a number of different angles. First of all, let me come at the idea of the church as a perfect society, and whether in a perfect society every member should realize the ends or goals of that society. And I don't think I would agree with that. I don't think that's the way the church understands herself either. The church does have an idea, a conception of herself as a perfect society, meaning that you can find everything that you need within the Catholic faith to come to holiness. It's kind of like walking into the perfect brunch buffet, and there is everything possible you could want there to satisfy your hunger. But if you want to pay your $8 at the door these days, it's probably more like $27.50 at the door, and then just walk out. I can't stop you. And it was kind of an analogy in the Catholic faith that Christ gave us the deposit of faith and the sacraments and the wisdom of the tradition and the example of the saints. And we have to cooperate with those graces that have been offered to us, lay hold of them, make them our own. And it's possible to step into the Catholic Church and say, man, this is a great place to find people to exploit. Maybe I can turn a buck by, writing a new book in the Catholic publishing and, try and make some money out of this. Or maybe I can be a great teacher and rise to fame and prominence in the Catholic Church. Or, maybe I'll be the world's greatest organist and they'll hire me to play at the Basilica in Washington or something. You could go into the Catholic faith with those kind of motives.
Yeah.
Probably better places to make a buck, by the way. But but you see my point.
Yes.
And you'd be misusing the elements that are there for you. And Christ talks about this in his parables. He speaks about the kingdom of God as like 4 soils. And a farmer goes out and sows seed on the soils and falls on 4 different kinds of people, and you get 4 different results, depending on the condition of the disposition of the heart of the one that receives it. But the elements are there of truth and sanctification that can bring us to holiness. And the saints are the proof that it works. If you want evidence that the church is a perfect society, that it has everything internal to its organization, to its constitution, to bring souls to holiness, then you just don't have to look any farther than the saints to see, in fact, that they do come to holiness by laying hold of the elements of the Catholic faith with generosity and sincerity. Now, why do some people not do that? So sin, of course, is kind of a mystery. St. Paul writes in Romans 7 about the condition of the human person, and he says, we have the law of God that instructs us in the way of truth and goodness. We also have the law of the mind. We have the natural law. We have what reason can tell us about living a good, healthy, moral life. But then we have what he calls the law of the members, law of the flesh, and the law of sin and death. And those things are at odds, at war with one another. We're kind of at war with ourselves. And it's not only Catholics that have this experience. If this weren't the case, we wouldn't have the profession of, psychologists and therapists who do turn a buck on this aspect of human experience. And we need grace to get out of that hole, right? We can't just white knuckle it or bootstrap ourselves out of that dilemma. We have to have grace. We have to be reformed, reshaped into the likeness and image of Christ. That process is arduous and difficult, right? Now, I don't want to lay the blame. It's not God's fault, right? But at the same time, the individual who's sort of mired in that muck, to whom a helping hand is not given, is going to have a very hard time getting out of it. So it's both a work of grace, but it's also a work of our own personal cooperation. God can offer the grace. We've got to reach out and grab it. But we have to have grace to reach out to. We can't just bootstrap ourselves out of our moral dilemma. And so some souls are in darkness because they haven't been offered a helping hand. Maybe someone hasn't reached out to them in kindness and love and shown them the face of Christ, and offered some way for them to reconceive of their circumstances and come to live a new and better life.
All right, and Gerard, thank you so much for your email.